All right, for the 10 in the resistance pattern, we have judgmental, overthinking, perfectionism, and unbalanced masculine or feminine energy. All right, let's dive into these deeper. So, the 10, people with the 10 have this innate ability to see perfection, to see what perfection looks like. And that can be very useful. It can be very useful for building quality into an experience or a product or a service. It can be very helpful to set a standard of excellence. However, that taken too far or without the heart connected to it, then it becomes very negative. So the judgmental aspect comes from being able to see what perfection looks like and seeing where people don't measure up. And in the resistance pattern, when that happens, a person with the 10 essentially thinks less of people. And this can go outwards or inwards. And this is ultimately why people with the 10, and I know this well, I have a couple 10 wands in my chart. So with this stuff, there's never any judgment because it's like we all have our own symbols and our own themes. So the judgmental nature of the 10s comes from the harsh inner judging of oneself. And so whenever the 10 is judging someone else, it's a mirror actually of where they're judging themselves. Self-righteous is another word that comes up for this. And it's this feeling and often unfounded that the person with the 10 is morally superior in various ways. So that's why in the genius talent, it's like the same core ability, which is seeing perfection, seeing the standard, yet it's not putting people down for not meeting it. It's discernment. And that's why in the genius talent, it's very helpful because it's able to see where a project or a skill or whichever is not measuring up and what needs to be done to meet the standard. It's just that the problem comes when, so for a contrast, resistance pattern of the 10 says, okay, well, these are all the ways you're not perfect. And in all these ways that you're not perfect is where you're worthless. Okay, so you can imagine that in a leadership style is not very inspiring to work for. And it can work in short terms. I mean, everyone can come up with examples of the basketball coach or whichever, or the tyrant CEO that, just blasts people like this, but then somehow gets good things out of them. And then, it's kind of this conventional wisdom that it's okay since it all works out in the end. It's very short-sighted because it's not long-term. People might put up with that for a little bit, and yeah, maybe they do produce some great things, but people jump ship because they think, I don't need to deal with this. And there's other leaders who can show me where I'm not measuring up, but not beat me down and make me worthless because of it. And that's ultimately what team members think. So this will drive team members away if it's in the resistance pattern. In the genius talent, it's more like the coach. It's like the wise coach that sees everybody's abilities and sees where they're not measuring up and then coaches them to improve on those. And that's where that discernment is so powerful, because in an instant it can see what's missing and what needs to be done. And it's a very intelligent mind. So that's why in the resistance pattern, overthinking can happen, where it just spirals out in these thought patterns. So having the 10 is just something to know that the mind is just going to go and go and go and go and go. So it's to understand that you need to mitigate that in different ways. For me, the overthinking is mitigated through exercise or walking. It helps quiet the mind, or in meditation, transcendental meditation, helps quiet the mind and get it to shut up for a bit so that it can be clear of what's the actual best advice. Because otherwise, it's just going to be thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking sideways, up and down, deep. It's just on and on and on. And that's where this perfectionism goes as well, because it's able to see what perfection looks like. And again, that can be very helpful, and you'll know when it's not helpful when it's the type of tone that says, okay, well, you're not perfect here, so you're worthless. As opposed to the genius talent is like, okay, this is what perfection looks like. This is where you're at. This is the gap. Let's make moves to close that gap. And also in the resistance pattern, it's denial of spirituality. It's denial of the higher power. And ironically, that's what the 10 is here to bring, spiritual wisdom. So the resistance pattern will keep a person from their genius talent by keeping them away from spiritual exploration, whatever pathway that might be for you of how you describe the higher power, how you connect to the higher power. It's up to you. However, the resistance pattern will just say, no, let's just not, we don't need to, or, we'll just focus on this other stuff. But that's really where you have like a treasure chest waiting of spiritual wisdom. It's waiting to come out. So that's where I encourage you is to find your own path, and new talents and wonderful momentum will open up for you along this path. Other thing that is a key here is unbalanced masculine/feminine energy. So this 10 is the harmonious balance of masculine and feminine energy. And so this is going to be different for each person. So every person has their own blend of masculine and feminine energy, and every person has their own optimal level of each. Some people, they're best suited to have more feminine energy and a little bit of masculine. Some people are on the other side. And it does not matter with gender. It's just you as a person of what's the optimal balance for you. And that's what is part of your journey, is to explore that. Because in the genius talent, it's somebody who is just a harmonious balance, and they can use the different masculine/feminine parts of themselves at the right time. And it's a very powerful thing, and it's a very dynamic energy as well. So oftentimes, in the sense of genders, when we see this, is that usually, in my case, I had a lot of feminine energy. So what was part of my journey is building the masculine energy for me. And at the same time, though, not losing either side of me. Sometimes when I work with women, it's where they're really anchored in the masculine energy, and then maybe they've been kicking ass in corporate or entrepreneur, and that's their path. And then as they step into this, it's about developing more of the feminine energy, more of the allowing, the trusting, which is a different dynamic. It's like a different skill set. And then as they do that more, then they're this double threat where it's like, boom, can use the masculine or the feminine energy whenever they need to. And then they find the center point that's most natural for them. And that's really what I want to drive home here, is that everyone's got their own center point of what's best for them. And, it goes against the common gender societal culture of men need to be like this and women need to be like this. This is really the new paradigm of like, you've got your own set point, where regardless of what gender you are, you've got your own set point, and find that for yourself, what feels most natural. And then you can, especially with the 10, then you can be anchored in your natural set point, and then still for different times, different areas of your life, you can go into each bucket, and use the energy from the masculine and feminine, whatever is most appropriate. Yeah, so this is also an excellent energy for healers, inventors. So you're really connecting to the higher power energy and helping bring that to the world. And it's almost like you're connecting to, say, a higher realm where a lot of the problems that we're still facing as humans are figured out, and you're bringing that wisdom, that model of perfection here. And that's why it's so important not to get into the judgmental lane of, okay, this is where people are missing the mark now, they're horrible, and let's blast them down. This is all about holding the standard. And as a person really steps into this, it's really wonderful, because it goes from being like, okay, this is where I can see where this person's missing the mark. And now, now that means they're less of a person, to having the standard. And as you connect that to your heart, people will come to you and they're seeking they know you can see the standard and they know that you can help them get there. And that's where, again, really goes into that wise coach. Because imagine if you had a coach and you're playing a sport and they can see you're making the mark and they're like basically telling you you're a piece of shit because you're not perfect. It's like, well, damn. I mean, nobody is. And that's part of the game is building your skills. Like even the best player in a sport in the world still isn't perfect. And that's a trap not to fall into the resistance pattern. And because the 10 of the judgmental can be ruthless to others, and the reason why it's ruthless to others is because it's ruthless to themselves. And so keep that standard of excellence, but don't let it destroy you. Let it propel you and launch you.